What if I told you one of the most widely used ingredients in human history is technically a chemical weapon? I'm talking about the onion, a vegetable so petty that when you try to eat it, it literally weaponizes sulfur to blind you. Most plants want to spread by animals. The onion took one look at humanity and chose violence. Now, as a manly man, I don't cry. I didn't cry when my bike was stolen, and I don't cry when cutting onions. But sad cat videos on Instagram? Now that will do it. Onions are found in nearly every cuisine on earth. With a handful of exceptions, you can find onions in soups, burgers, stir-fry salads, and even rings include this angry vegetable. If humanity can cook it, somebody has probably tried to throw onions into it. And somehow, despite being one of the most common ingredients on the planet, onions are also one of the most hated. Mostly because every time you cut into one, it decides violence is the answer. Granted, I think most people have the same idea. Today, onions are grown on every inhabited continent, billions of pounds are harvested every year, entire industries rely on them, and yet, most people only think about onions while they're trying not to cry while making dinner, which is unfortunate, because onions have one of the oldest histories of any crop humanity still grows. People have been cultivating onions for over 5,000 years, and possibly longer. The exact origin is a little difficult to pin down, but historians generally believe onions were first domesticated somewhere in Central Asia before spreading throughout the ancient world, which isn't fully surprising. They're easy to grow, easy to transport, and unlike bananas, which have a 3-minute window between rock hard and black slime, onions will happily sit in your pantry through a small economic recession. Ancient Egyptians loved onions, and I mean they really loved onions. They placed onions in tombs. Some mummies were even buried with onions, which means somebody preparing a pharaoh for their afterlife looked at the burial checklist and thought gold, check, jewels, check, several onions. Well, obviously, personally, I think they just wanted Osiris to know that the afterlife meant business. You don't meet the god of the underworld with minty, fresh breath. Onions also appear throughout ancient Greek and Rome. Greek athletes reportedly ate onions before competition because they believed they improved strength. Some even rubbed onion juice on their bodies, which is not surprising if you remember that ancient athletes would sell their sweat as some kind of miracle tonic. The Romans spread onions throughout much of Europe as their empire expanded. And to be fair, the Romans spread everything, because nothing says you've been conquered by Rome quite like new roads, heavy taxes, and a vegetable that smells like defeat. By the Middle Ages, onions had become one of Europe's most important foods, not because they were fancy, quite the opposite. They were cheap, nutritious, easy to grow, and they stored remarkably well like a potato. The last part was incredibly important because food preservation wasn't exactly easy. Milk and meat spoiled, and pretty much everything spoiled. Meanwhile, onions just sat in a corner going, I can do this all winter. If food had personality types, onions would be the kind of coworker who works 80 hours a week, drinks black coffee, never smiles, and silently judges you every time you take a sick day. And if you fire them, the whole office collapses into chaos within 48 hours. As trade expanded, onions spread almost everywhere people settled. Today, there are hundreds of varieties. Yellow onions, white onions, red onions, sweet onions, and green onions, to name a few. At some point, humanity clearly decided one onion was enough, which is useful to help counter vampires and witches. Now, modern pop culture wants you to believe that garlic is the ultimate vampire repellent. That is revisionist history propaganda. Historically, garlic was one of the backup singers. The real frontline defense against supernatural was the onion. Old world folklore, especially around European Strigoi, treated onions like a holy hand grenade. Pestilence spirits didn't like them. Ghosts terrified of the smell. Demons repelled. Witches, sorcerers, and hex weavers wouldn't go near a house laced with them. People used to hang breaded onions on their porches and over doors as the little anti-curse biological shield. It was the original home security defense system. And honestly, it works. I hung a string of yellow onions on my front porch 3 weeks ago, and that fucking witch from down the street hasn't set foot on my lawn since. Coincidence? I don't think so. Now here's the part everyone remembers. Why do onions make us cry? Because their assholes made of tiny cells. And when you cut into an onion, you break open thousands of tiny plant cells. Normally, those chemicals stay separated, but when cells rupture, they mix together and create a gas called some big ass word I'm not going to try to pronounce. For those of you upset about that, when have I tried to pronounce big scary word? That gas floats to your eyes immediately think this seems bad, so start producing tears to wash it away. Congratulations, the onion won. And yes, there are ways to reduce the tears. A sharp knife damages fewer cells. Chilling the onion beforehand slows the chemical reaction. Some people wear goggles, or just do what I do and push through it. Pain, like mercy, is a weakness. Of course, humanity wasn't satisfied with onions just making us cry. We started selectively breeding them. Over thousands of years, farmers developed sweeter onions, larger onions, milder onions, because apparently we looked at a perfectly good vegetable and thought, it needs to hurt my feelings less. Honestly, fair enough. Today, onions are one of the most widely produced vegetables in the world. Millions upon millions of tons are harvested every year. They're grown on enormous farms, sold in every grocery store, and quietly added recipes, whether people notice them or not. In fact, you're probably eating onions today without realizing it. They're in sauces, seasoning frozen meals, restaurant foods, and fast food. Basically, onions have become the background character of cooking, the grim reaper of flavor. You hate facing them, you dread cutting them, but without them, your dish is basically dead on arrival. You don't always notice them, but you do remove them, and suddenly everything feels like it's missing something. So next time you cut into an onion and immediately regret your decisions, remember, you're holding a vegetable that's fed civilizations, traveled alongside empires, survived thousands of years of agriculture, and developed one of the most effective self-defense mechanisms ever created. Not by killing us, just by making dinner slightly more emotional. And that is the history of the onion, a story about agriculture, ancient civilizations, and humanity's remarkable willingness to keep eating something that literally fights back. Thank you, and as usual, like and subscribe. Tell me in the comments what food, ingredient, or drink that I may cover next.